Beast Machines episode reviews now continue with A Wolf in the Fold, which, strangely enough, does not have Noble in it whatsoever, even though he's literally the only wolf in the show. Usually, the episode titles are a little bit more literal. In this case, I'm not sure. I mean, there's a parallel. It's somewhat appropriate. It might be a little bit off the mark. So this is a rare thing for Beast Machines to actually have. This is an episode I would actually consider filler. Nothing in this episode really drives the overall plot of the series. Nothing really gets accomplished. It's more or less just a crisis of the week style episode. Which, in one hand, I've been asking for filler episodes to kind of give us a moment to breathe, which is a line even Black Arachnia starts this episode with, but also give us a chance to see the characters in different situations. Unfortunately, due to the plot of this episode, we don't really get to see them in different situations. So, and for two reasons, really. And we'll explain what's going on first, and then we'll get to those. So, apparently, in diving around in Cybertron's data core, Megatron comes across something that was supposedly completely wiped out in Generation 1 at the end of Season 3. He comes across the Hate Plague. Another thing that they're allowed to reference from G1 when they were not allowed to reference anything from Beast Wars, the direct sequel, the direct prequel to this series. We've harped on that a lot. I'm going to continue harping on it because it's very true. And it's still very confusing the more this occurs. The Hate Plague is late Season 3. It's, the Return of Optimus Prime Part 1 and 2. And according to that story, it was completely wiped out. So apparently this is a derivative of that. And I say derivative because it's definitely not as effective as the original. Aside from the fact that you don't need a matrix of leadership to cure it, the Maximals do occasionally fight through it. It might be because they're different biology from original Transformers, but for whatever reason, it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes they're at each other's throats. Sometimes when their concern for each other breaks through, they actually act fine, and then they kind of go right back to it again. Now, again, I said there were two problems I have with incorporating the Hate Plague in Beast Machines. Number one is the fact that we already see the Maximals infight all the time. At this point in the series, I'm already tired of them finding reasons to bicker with each other. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to see the heroes constantly at each other's throats or finding reasons to start fighting with each other. Or like for everyone to gang up on somebody else because, okay, they're having trouble transforming, or my friend is out there and I'm concerned about him. These are not things Maximals should be doing to their comrades, much less some of the ones that are Beast Wars survivors and have been through a lot worse together. The other reason is because Season 1 already introduced us to a very similar idea, and that was with Night Scream's debut episode in the Fruit Tree. Now, largely that one just kind of de-evolved the Maximals and made them more primitive and feral, but the overall result was the same. It was a more aggressive nature and attitude to them. So we've already kind of dealt with something like this. So this, as filler, this kind of feels repeat, which is not what you really want at this point in the series. So two things about the Hate Plague that just really didn't work for me in the episode. But let us digress into finer points. Cheetor is still kind of showing some immaturity in that he accidentally reminded us of Rhinox. So good job, Cheetor. Good job, Cheetor. Bring down the mood right at the beginning of the episode. So Megatron has his own scheme with this. He has a point to prove when he's using this Hate Plague thing. So the Grand Mall, giant floating head with a floating head inside it controlling it, strangely enough. It isn't directly connected to Cybertron, but it can be directly connected. It uses these like drilling bore cables to kind of sink into the catacombs where the Maximals are, and starts spreading like an energy through them, which is what transmits the Hate Plague. And it transmits just like the original Hate Plague did by touch. So it's very quick, and like everyone is very conveniently coming in contact with each other, whether it is stepping on tails or high-fiving out of nowhere. Everyone except for Primal, that who gets infected later, ends up, incidentally coming in contact with each other. Very convenient in how that works, so that everyone gets infected very, very quickly. And the infighting starts very, very quickly. It is far more aggressive than it was previously. There's a lot more hostility towards Silverbolt here. If anything is gained in this episode, is the fact that we get to look at Silverbolt as a character. So part of what his character is his self-loathing for what he experienced while he was as Jetstorm. The fact that he reveled in the fact that his code of honor was stripped away, even if he was, on the opposite side of his friends, it was enjoyable. And a lot of his dark brooding manner is just the fact that he loathes himself for feeling that way. So he's got a long road to forgive himself. And in this episode does show that he still has like the sense of mind, and there's some of the old Silverbolt in there, because he's the one that breaks through and becomes rational through this ahead of everybody else. He also is the first one to discover the fact that this energy wave left a chip on the Maximals, which is what transmitted the plague in the first place. There's kind of a minor implication here that this may have been intentional, because Silverbolt is the first time they've gotten someone back from Megatron. So there's a scheme, like the wolf in the fold here can mean the virus, but the intended implication here is that there's a distrust of Silverbolt because he used to be Jetstorm, and because his spark was not brought back naturally, I assume. I mean, it's not a great narrative. It's more reason for Maximals to just start distrusting each other, which, I'm really not a fan of at this point in the series. I think I'd just be happy that Silverbolt's back, even if he is trying to be Batman. But no, we'll get to Megatron here at the end. Let's finish talking about the hate plague in general and how it is worked. So like I said, it's definitely a derivative. It's just not as effective. It's like COVID Omicron, where it works much faster, but it's not nearly as powerful. So everyone just kind of keeps breaking through it, and they do a good job still working together. They are being attacked by Thrust and the cycle drones, because it's literally the only general and drones left at this point. But they're doing a good job fighting them off, and they are actually protecting each other. As soon as they're done protecting, right back into infighting. So, you'll notice in these slides that I don't show many shots of the cycle drones or Thrust, because really they're completely ineffectual. I almost feel bad for Thrust at this point in the series, because he's the only general left taking on six Maximals, and next episode we're going to introduce a seventh. We will talk about the implications of that in a little bit. We'll do that here in a couple episodes. For now, the virus here gets cured somehow. So there's a scene where they handle the Viacons together. They work together, and actually work together pretty well to figure out what was going on. Handle the Viacons, and then there's a scene with everybody falling and then linking in order to in one is very cartoon. I'll grab your leg, you grab my hand, I'll grab your tail, and we'll just kind of form a chain all the way up, where Primal flies everyone back up to the surface. It's very silly. And somehow the connection they form is what breaks control and cures the plague. How? You tell me. Okay, so how did that happen? What? Power of friendship? Heart of the cards? What was that? They didn't do anything to cure it. They just kind of hey, we like each other, and gone. I mean, overcome hate with love, fine, but also explain it. And also, it took a lot more. We had to sacrifice the matrix of leadership to wipe this out the first time, and this time all we had to do was hold hands and sing campfire songs to each other. it's I don't know. It doesn't feel earned. The win here does not feel earned. It just kind of like stops. The virus just kind of decides to go like, you know what? I'm good. I'm good. I had my fun. I'm just gonna move on now. I'm just gonna move on. Meanwhile, the Megatron side of this is that he's trying to prove a point that because the Maximals are always because they are individualized, they always have a disharmony amongst them, regardless of what their overall goal is, regardless of their claims of friendship and teamwork. They are still disharmonized because their sparks are, free. Megatron is trying to paint this narrative that both he and Primal want the same thing. They want a harmonious Cybertron, but they have very different ideas of what that means. So you try and paint the idea that they're, we're not so different, you and I. One of us committed genocide and the other one didn't. I think that makes us pretty dissimilar. But this show is obsessed with trying to push this narrative that Megatron ultimately might be right, or that there's some element to his crusade that is actually correct, which I don't know why they're pushing. Like, he's done like the most horrendous thing anyone's ever done to the planet Cybertron. That includes the people who've ripped it in half and blown it up, because at least then most everyone survived those occasions. This is just cruel. This is just no. This is far worse. This is far worse. So, yeah. The episode ends with Primal actually considering that Megatron might be right because the Plague did not create the disharmony. They already had it amongst themselves, and the Plague just drew it out. And I'm sorry, but no. That's number one. This is not a revelation. Like, we should not be halfway through season 2 of a series that literally revolves around the genocide of every Transformer on Cybertron and go, you know what? Maybe the bad guy's got a point here. No, ship has sailed. Ship has long since sailed on that one. We're not even approaching that idea. It's stupid. It's dumb. It's at least an interesting episode because we had to see them doing something different, even though there are similar notes to it. I'm giving it a passable score. Silverbolt's way toned down here, and we're starting to see, the more brooding type he's going to be. The little bits he's going to be having with Night Scream are actually not bad. So there's salvageable elements of this, but ultimately it pushes a narrative that makes no sense for this series. Doesn't really accomplish anything to the plot. And yeah, I think it was way too easy to beat. And then poorly explained to beat. I might drop it down a notch lower, if it hadn't been for these moments of working together through the Plague that I thought was really good character work for the team. So that is A Wolf in the Fold. Join me next time. We're going to get to one of the strangest and somewhat controversial characters Transformers ever created. So join me then, won't you?
Yeah, I guess I'll give Bardic to Pain. Pain, my number one good best friend. You got this.
You're just basically like Caboose at this point.
Just like...
Oh, God.
That's... all right, let's keep this Pain train going. The Caboose is here.
Son of a bitch.
No.
And yeah,
this makes me Tucker. I'm quitting.
Jaws, take 2 psychic damage.